Welcome to the Washdown podcast. And tonight's guest is Steve Farina. Steve began his career as an on-call firefighter with the Township of Langley Fire Department in 1992, and 5 years later joined the Coquitlam Fire Rescue full-time. He was elected to the executive board of IAFF Local 1782 in 2005 and was promoted to captain in 2015. In addition, Steve is a VP on the BC Professional Firefighters Association, which represents over 4,000 professional firefighters across BC. He chairs both the BCPFFA's Health and Safety Committee and their Mental Health Task Force. He is also a member of the Coquitlam Fire Rescue Critical Incident Stress Team and has taken lead in defusing a multitude of critical incidents. He also serves as a peer supporter for his coworkers and has organized and hosted several mental health awareness nights for firefighter spouses and partners. He represents the BCPFFA on the BC's First Responder Mental Health Steering Committee, chaired by WorkSafe BC. We had a great conversation with Steve. Learned a lot of stuff. Like I said, it was just a great conversation. So check him out. And I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Make sure that you like and subscribe and follow on all that stuff on Spotify and on YouTube. So here you go. Here's the Washdown podcast with special guest Steve Farina.
So it's even got the English version of the word behavioral.
Yes.
That's
fancy. It messed me up. I was like, oh, that is behavioral. It's not the American version. It's the English version.
we put a U in that and an honor as well.
That's you
it's
guys
just extra letters, man.
Yeah.
I'm doing good to spell honor without the U.
Oh, well, Steve, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're on the show, and then we will go from there.
Sounds good. So my name is Steve Farina. I'm with the BC Professional Firefighters Association up here in Canada. So we represent about 4,500 professional firefighters here in the province. And I'm one of the vice presidents on that association. And I'm also, like yourself, I was working last night. I'm on Engine 1 as a suppression captain in Coquitlam Fire Rescue. I've been doing that for just over 25 years. And I was 5 years as a paid on-call firefighter. That's how I started out in Langley Township, it's a little 200-person fire department here in the lower mainland. So I've been doing everything since health and safety, mental health related. I was a tech rescue instructor, high angle, did some dispatching, relief dispatching, did a stint in the training division. So I've wore a lot of hats, and I'm excited to be part of we have a mental health committee for our workers' comp up here. It's all the first responder organizations, and I get to sit on that, running conferences and developing resources and education for first responders and mental health professionals.
So what do you do in your spare time?
I know, man. I'm trying to unwind a lot of stuff as I wind down to retirement. I'm trying to take off some hats and hand off some duties. But yeah, I mean, I try to get in. I got a great river here that I can kayak in. And I've got my daughter and I, we travel together. We just got back from Hawaii. We were in Maui for 8 days. So I do try to get some R&R in there. And or else we explode, right? So
yeah, well, there's that little thing, self-care, that
a
lot of us first responders aren't so great about,
right? And I like to say that self-care isn't selfish, and we got to stop thinking of it as being selfish. I think we're always so giving to everybody else that we need to give back to ourselves, right?
Oh, you know what? It's such a good point, and I wish Moran was here to say that, or here to hear that. We got a buddy that normally does the podcast with us, and like those would be great words for him to hear. And it's one of those things of people seem to think, okay, I can't take a step back and go on a vacation because, like, I don't know how it is for you guys up there about being short staffed and call volume going up exponentially and all that stuff, exactly what you're experiencing. But for us down here, that's what it is. We're You know, everybody's understaffed. We're police departments, fire departments. So, you've got overtime, mandatory overtime. And, well, if I take a day off, then that's going to put a burden on, Joe. And I can't take a day off now.
I know. It's a vicious cycle. We definitely short staffed up here in EMS and the policing and fire side for lots of smaller departments. And you're right, because we're such a conscientious bunch, there's that you feel like you can't take a day off, right? Or else someone else is going to take on that extra burden. And that adds such stress on top of all the call stress, life stress, everything. That organizational stress piece, sanctuary trauma, or whatever you want to call it, that just adds another rock to your backpack.
Yeah. And the backpack's already full.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a backpack anymore. It's a rucksack for a lot of us.
Yeah.
We just get a bigger container. It'll be fine.
That's right.
So I do have a question here. Since your healthcare system is different than ours, do you think that plays a factor in how busy your EMS is? Now, so if somebody calls for an ambulance, do they get a bill or not? I guess
they don't.
First question.
So the beautiful thing about universal healthcare is you got a problem, you call, we haul. That's all. I mean, that's our motto, and you're not charged at all. I mean, we pay significant taxes to have that luxury. And do people take advantage of it? Oh, hell yeah! I was just on a medical call. We run medicals as well on our engine, and we were just at one. She had a sore throat. She called 911. And the ambulance picked her up and took her to the hospital.
Even though, most places, there are cities that if you smaller ones, they'll pay the bill. Like we have one next to us that does that if you go to a certain hospital. Right. For us, we don't have that. We're too large. And then, but we still have the you call, we haul motto.
Yeah.
Right
So
we don't have
the toothache, ran them all.
We don't have the right to refuse service.
Yeah.
No,
but we do get a bill here if you take the ambulance.
Right.
Even though you're depending on what your injury is, that your health insurance will cover a portion of it.
Right.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends on all that. I just didn't know if because I know you had universal health care, so I didn't know if that played a factor in you guys being maybe a little bit busier than what you would if you were maybe our shoes. Does that make sense?
I don't know. Yeah, it totally makes sense. I mean, I don't think everybody takes advantage of it. Typically, I would say 10% of the calls, you're like, oh my Lord, like seriously, you called for us for that? But, legitimately people call 911. I think they don't feel entitled. They don't take advantage of it on the greater side. But I mean, 60-70% of our calls are still running medicals, right? They take up a large portion of our call volume.
I think we're at 85% medical now.
There you go.
The last time they did the numbers.
Yeah.
And then, so what about work-related injuries for you guys? Was that added stress? Because like ours, we're taken care of very well if we get hurt. I mean, you're into the specialist really quick. Your MRIs are quick. I had 2 surgeries last year and they were both quick. They just recovery was long between the 2.
Yeah. Is that through a compensation system like workers' comp?
We have workers' comp, but the city provides it and they set everything up for us. And it's quick.
Brilliant. I mean, I wish more cities were like that. Because we rely on our workers' comp to run those claims, if it's work related, whether it's a physical claim or mental health claim, it depends on your case manager. Sometimes you can get expedited services where you're just like, in for a knee surgery, out recovering and physio, and off you go. And then other people have nightmare situations where they're waiting for specialists and they're waiting for surgery. And then COVID threw a gigantic wrench into that with surgery and wait times and everything.
That threw a wrench in ours too.
No. Oh my God, everywhere. Globally, right?
So now when you guys get hurt, do you have a system where like you get 60% pay, 100% pay? How does that work for your guys?
Yeah, it's different across the country for us. So here in BC, depending on your collective agreement, for us, we get top up. So you don't see any change in your net pay. The city gets reimbursed from workers' comp up to a certain wage max, and then the city takes care of the rest. So as a captain, I'd get paid up to, I think it's just over 100K from workers' comp, and then the city pays the difference for me. So I don't see a change in pay at all. And
so
but then
same
my
what we got.
Same with you guys, and then of course other departments are 80%, some are 60, like same thing. Like right across the country, it's different. So we're very fortunate here in BC.
Yeah, same here. That was one of the biggest things. It takes. I know it's small, but it takes something off your plate if you
absolutely.
You don't have to worry about it because you get your base salary. Now your overtime, because we're both overtime guys.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's I don't think I've had a normal paycheck in a while.
The last normal paycheck I had was when I was still hurt. As soon as I came back, I started working overtime again. And
that's crazy, eh? That's a huge burden. We get burnout rates from that, like burnout from overtime. Like we got guys in smaller departments that have like short staffed and they are refusing overtime because they got no time with their families. They're just like, you can't work anymore. And I don't know if you guys find that. It's just like you're freaking, where's a day off? Pay is great, but man, you're burnt. How can you enjoy it?
Yeah. Well, me personally, I set a rule for myself of 48 hours. That's it. Yeah. Like I will work 2 days in a row and that's good. But I'm going to take a day off before my next shift because we run that 24-48 shift.
Gotcha.
Because if you end up working 3 days in a row, you're going to work 4 days in a row. And I'm no good to anybody after 4 days at the fire station.
You're no good on your first day. We used to when we were firefighters, we worked together a lot.
Yeah,
multiple times.
We went through the academy together. Yeah. We were at the same station together for 7 years.
Yeah, 7 or 8.
Yeah. So
and then again before we got promoted.
That's cool. You guys have been detached for a while there. That's awesome.
The district I'm in, there's just not a whole lot of overtime. So it's, I don't get hired as a captain very often. Usually it's as a firefighter.
Right.
Honestly, I can get hired as a medic whenever I want. Just been taking a break from it. I need to get back to it, but it's there. I try to spend more time at home.
Yeah.
I got used to being at home every night, and it was kind of nice when I was on a 40-hour schedule. I slept better. It was normal sleep. I felt like I was happier. I was more fun to be around because I was on a normal sleep schedule and I had normal sleep.
Yeah. That's funny. That circadian rhythm piece is something we've been delving into. I was part of the Canadian Standards Association developed a fatigue risk management standard for first responders. And so I got to be part of that. IAFF Canada had a bunch of reps on it right across Canada. We had some sleep experts, and that fatigue piece was very, very interesting, man. Like the different shift patterns, like for us, we work back-to-back nights. So we work two 10s, 2 14s, and there's that no break between night shifts. If I get slammed on the first night shift, like I'm in fatigue, I'm in sleep debt. And so that's definitely opened up our eyes in the last little while, is how important that circadian rhythm regulation is. Like you said, you act like a different person when you're sleep deprived. And we're starting to see a lot more, well, not even the biological impact on your body, like increased heart disease, increased diabetes, the mental fatigue, and then just you're acting like an asshole to your family and friends and have, and it adds all those things you talk about, that rucksack full of shit. And then you throw the shift work and stuff on top of that and the sleep interruptions. Oh my God. It's a recipe for disaster.
Everything about the schedule for the job is not good for long-term mental health. I mean, it's really not, because I mean, no matter how hard you try, you're going to get, like we were talking about earlier, you're going to get woken up at night more than likely. So that circadian rhythm is going to get jacked up, and that uninterrupted REM sleep, that's whenever your brain is processing all of that stuff and flushing out all those toxins. And if you're constantly not permitting yourself to get into that, all that stuff is just building, and it makes it even harder. So you're already starting at a deficit as far as your mental health is going. So what led you to get involved with mental health? Like, was that something that you were like at the beginning of your career, you were like, I want everybody to be mentally healthy? Or was this something that later on,
Dude, it was not even on my radar when I first started in the fire service. However, the paid on call fire department I was involved with, we had 2 ex-teachers, or they were teachers in our training division. And they were kind of like visionaries back then. We're talking early 90s. And they started CISM, Critical Incident Stress Management, back in the 90s. And so I got an introduction to that, and I was part of the team and did some defusings. And so, but then it kind of put a pin in it. I became a full-time firefighter, and, I may have taken part in it, but I wasn't directly involved. So flash forward, 20 years later, and we have 2 back-to-back suicides in one of our neighboring departments. They were 6-7 weeks apart, and it just slammed us. I was back in 2015. And that kind of like leapfrogged me back into that mental health world. I was sitting on the health and safety committee. We're like, holy shit, this is like rung our bell. And what are we going to do about this? And so we started surveying. I got involved with the committee. And at the same time, our first responder world basically said, holy shit, we got to do something about this. This is like mental health is an issue here. And it started coming out of the shadows the same time the IAFF said, PTSD coming out of the shadows. And it was sort of everything happened all at once. And then boom, I got pushed into this role where I'm like the mental health guy. And, we're pushing peer support, CISM, we're creating programming, and that's when I met Dr. Duncan Shields and Dr. Cool through my buddy, Tony Spees. He was a local fireman that I did some side work with, and we're chatting, we're doing a con space standby, and we're chatting. He's like, oh man, I got all my buddies are hurting. And I'm like, same here. Everyone's reaching out. We got to do something about this. And then that's what pushed me into that whole firefighter resiliency program we started up here in BC back in 2017. And I said, fuck, we're doing this. We're going to do what the veterans are doing to support them. We're going to do that for our firefighter family. And I was able to get some grant money. I was shopping at Costco for it was a 4-day kind of not retreat because it was inpatient. It was like 4 days of just heavy lifting, man. Just eight to 10 firefighters being led by a couple of really talented clinicians. And we were just doing some psychoeducation, some storytelling, and some bonding and some healing. And it's been life-changing. It's literally transformed the BC Fire Service. When it comes to people taking a knee, reaching out, I mean, we got a $400,000 grant from November to help run our program. So it's like, we got some international, freaking support. It was unbelievable. So yeah, that's interesting how I got into it. I never thought for sure why I would be in the mental health world, but here I am, man. And still so much work to do. Holy mackerel.
That's one of those never-ending worlds.
Yeah. That's
they're always going to learn something new and going to evolve and find a better way to help and treat and all that. It just doesn't stop.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking about there has to be a culture shift, you know, and is that culture ever going to shift 100%? And, because that question's been asked of me because the reason that we started the podcast was, we want to raise awareness and tell people it's okay and, reach out for help and here are resources and, this and that. And it's like, well, what happens if you don't succeed or, I'm like, well, what else am I going to do? I can sit here and just
gotta try.
Mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck. I'm tired of I'm trying to go to funerals, man. I'm tired of seeing my brothers and sisters hurting. And this having these conversations and making it normal gives permission to other people to reach out and talk. And I think that's what we're doing right here is just taking just a bunch of regular dudes talking about the shit that we see and admitting that life can kick you in the balls. But there's a family of people that are also getting kicked in the balls, I guess, if you want, collectively.
Yeah.
But we're all just support each other through that, right? And it normalizes it. It's like, I've seen that. I've seen that, been that. Yeah, been through that. And then it's not only just the work stuff, it's life stuff too, man. Guys got kids in hospitals. It's like your parents are having trouble. Like my mom was in the hospital this summer and you just that's life, right?
Yeah.
Got to be able to take a knee.
Yeah. You got all of life stuff that everybody, excuse me.
Yeah.
That everybody has. And then you compound it by dealing with everybody else's life stuff, their worst day. That's whenever we get called. I mean, if you think about it, step back and think about it logically. If you weren't affected by it, you would be a sociopath.
Absolutely. 100%.
Like that is not normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's very telling, right? Yeah. And maybe they've just pushed it down so much. Exactly. I've got guys on my job. Yeah, and you wonder, how come that call didn't affect you? And I'm like, look at them. I'm like, it's because they pushed it down for so long that they don't allow themselves to feel, right? And that works at the time of the call. We know this. You need stoicism. You need to be able to respond and do our job. But when that shows up at the freaking family table and at home and with your kids, that's not healthy, right?
Yeah, and so that's not okay.
It's turning it off. That's not okay, right? And it's incumbent upon us to, check your freaking ego and take a knee when you need to, right? Because I think we need to change that narrative that it's when you show vulnerability, that's strength, man. Like when you're asking for help, that's strength. It's not weakness. And so often I was brought up like, shit, man. I'll remember responding to, it was a SIDS call. We were coming back and the captain is a crusty old captain. He had this beautiful, like enviable mustache, like just like, whew, it's unbelievable. Right. And he just he turned back to us and us, I was like green kid in the back. And it's like, any of you pussies needed defusing and talk about this call. And it's like, hell no, no one's going to talk. Right.
No.
Yeah.
Like, nope, I'm good, Cap. No, I was good. I see dead babies all the time. It's all good. Like, oh, it's like, whoa, 20 some odd years old. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, I'm not going to speak up. Yeah. But now as a captain, I turn around. I don't even give them an option. We go back to the hall, like, we're talking about this. Whether it's on the tailboard or at the kitchen table, we're going to say, that was fucked up. If it didn't, like, it affected me, I'll always say that. The kid calls always affect me. And I said, and here are the resources. And we're going to check on you guys in a week's time to say, hey, are you sleeping well? Do you need resources? I got a great counselor network I can connect you with. Like, let's just talk about it. Cause that is not normal to push that shit down. That is not normal.
Yeah, it is. No, not normal and not healthy for sure. So I watched the podcast you were on, the 108 podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Christian's awesome.
Yeah. Great podcast, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Cool. But you said something on there and I wanted to get some clarification from you. You were talking about basically that of checking in on your people afterwards. And then, if you run a critical call, sending guys home and things like that. In today's climate with, of course, we talked about earlier how short-staffed we are and, you guys are as well. Is that a feasible option?
I mean, how do you put the price on someone's mental health? And I know staffing, that you take staffing, you put that off to a side right now. Yeah. Because what is your biggest asset on your job? It isn't a fire truck. It's not a fire hall. It's not anything. It's your people.
Exactly.
If you can't take care of your biggest asset, you're failing as a fire chief, retire or you're fired. And that's like the bottom line. So if you have people that are went to a critical incident and you expose them again to another critical incident, right? And another, like there's nothing to say I went to a hanging and then we go back and we just went to an MVI with a kid that got killed. Back-to-back calls, right? Talk about compounding the critical incident. So sometimes logistically, you can't take those crews off. You're just running call after call. But if you really believe in your assets and taking care of your people, you're 100% going to call, hey, you're going to call more overtime. It's the fucking cost of doing business, man. What's the cost of a suicide or a person that's off for a year on a mental health issue? Like in BC, cost of a claim, $190,000 to have a guy off. One member off for 1 year, $190,000. That's, tell me how much an overtime crew is going to cost you for four people, 2 people, whatever. It's a fucking drop in the bucket, man, when you think of the impact. And then your people feel supported. They're able to go do some R&R, hug their family, whatever they need to do, come back rested.
Yeah. Well, and that brings me to what I've been saying for forever of we need to be more proactive about that stuff. We can't let it get to the point where guys are, and I use guys or girls interchangeably. Sure. It just means everybody. So just for clarification's sake, whenever you have people that get to the point where they have to be off for a year, we've waited too long. You failed. Your leadership is failing. Like the people that are in the station with them have been failing because look, you can't look at me and say, as much time as Chris and I spend together that we're not going to notice when stuff is going off the rails.
Hell yeah.
And
you should, if you're a good human.
And we have to have.
I didn't notice.
Well,
I didn't notice.
In
your defense,
I don't like him that much. I just act.
In your defense, we hadn't worked together for a while before that.
No, it had been a long while.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so when you're working with somebody day in and day out, we have to have the courage to stand up and say, "Hey, are you okay?" And then make them talk to you. Not pussyfoot around and do the whole passing in the hallway. Hey, man, love you, brother.
Exactly.
You got to invest some time in the people that you work with. It will just a little bit of proactivity. will save, I mean, it'll save these departments and it'll save our people.
Well, I think just asking the question after a call in the right way.
So, yeah, sincerely,
bring up,
authentically.
the old crusty captain. I had those. Jeremy had those. We remember that. We remember that. And we still have a few that are kind of like that in it. But even I've noticed a change in those guys here recently, where they're asking the question differently. Good. And I know I've asked the question differently. There's been a few times on some calls, and it's like, all right, so we get back to the station. I'll talk to the crew.
Yeah, I love that. And we have to have more of those conversations. And it has to be sincere, right? It has to be done authentically and organically. And I like what you're saying, because you also, there's the other flip side too, is you got to have the capacity and the time to ask those questions properly. Because if you want a 10-second answer, then don't ask the question. So if you really do care, man, like you said in the truck bay, it's not, hey brother, how you doing? It's like, hey man, like really, how are you doing? And taking the time, it's your body language, it's your positioning. I'm ready to receive whatever shit you got to dump on me, man. So, I mean, that's the crux of peer support or just being a good human, is be ready to listen too. And know the resources. I think that's another part, is that, so I work in the union executive world, and I was at a conference where I asked the union executive who bargain our benefits and are at that table. I'm like, who knows what mental health benefits do you guys have? Your employee assistance programs, whoever, your psychological benefits. And I had one hand out of probably 180 people that said, I know what my benefits are. I'm like, that's unacceptable. Like, we need to know what resources are available. So when someone does take a knee or put up their hand, we can direct them to the right resources and get them help, right? I think that's a critical piece for sure.
Well, and that's, unfortunately, the sad fact of it is the resources, at least here, are limited. Right. We have, there are several programs around in our area that deal with first responders and veterans exclusively. Right. And, there are a few counselors that do the same thing, but there's not enough of them for as many of us as there are. And the need, they have the same call volume versus, it's the same for them. They're short staffed too, if you want to, say that
universally.
And so, you run into the situation of, well, I have this firefighter and they need help and, this and that. Okay, well, let's get them with a therapist, or let's get them through EAP or through one of our other programs. And it's like, okay, well, we can get them in 3 months.
Yeah. That's
oh, man. Again, we waited too long and they need help right now. It's frustrating. That aspect of it is super frustrating. So
I think our focus here, I mean, just generally from our, like, a strategic point of view, is you talk about this downstream, over the waterfall, I call it. Like, they require inpatient, they've waited too long, like they're damaged, they actually have a post-traumatic stress injury. Is us focusing our energy on education and upstream stuff. And I tell anybody, I do a new recruit talk, so we're hiring 12 coming up here, and I'll be chatting with them. It's like, don't wait till you had your 100th call or your first critical incident to talk to a mental health professional. For us, it's like, get connected, start a relationship, get them to know you, so then when the shit hits the fan, because it will, you'll have someone that already knows you, you've already had a conversation with, you're comfortable with, you feel safe with, and said, check in on them. Like, we've got benefits. Like, get at them before the shit hits the fan, before you're over the waterfall, and build that relationship. And then you can get in front of it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just on how you approach it, right? But you got to have the people to do it. Like you said, you got to have people that know our job too. Like, I've spent the last 4 years with my buddy who started First Responder Health, and we basically taught mental health professionals about our occupation. We went around all over BC. After 3 provinces we went across, and we got in front of counselors, mental health professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, clinical counselors, and we taught them about the job, how we talk, the barriers, the logistics, the operations, but also the stoic work culture, the maladaptive mechanisms of drinking and substance use. And so we talked about all those things, and we've got this well over 400 people in our network here in BC that actually took at least 2 days with us. And I didn't sugarcoat it. It was kind of good cop, bad cop. He was like, he's a mental health professional and a firefighter, and I'm just the firefighter. So I'm the crusty old captain now, and I give them the raw goods, man. But they appreciated the honesty because it gave them a perspective that this is how we need to treat first responders. These are the challenges that they have, and this is kind of how you got to set up your office, your practice, and then knowing that it took me a year to get up the courage to take a knee and to come talk to you, and I've got 25 years of baggage and that rucksack. Like how helping that person put that down for a bit and helping them unpack that, that's what we kind of taught them. We didn't teach them how to be mental health professionals, but how to handle us as patients, because we are definitely probably the most challenging, offensive.
I am glad to hear that it's international, even though it's north of the border, that it just carries right over to who we are. Or comes to the south, however you want to look at it.
Dude, I love it. I've got buddies that are firefighters from Florida to freaking to Alaska, man. Like I've got the very good pleasure of meeting so many people in the unionized world that it truly is an international brotherhood and sisterhood. And man, we are cut from the same cloth. Doesn't matter where you're from, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. It's so hilarious, man.
And that's the prime example, or the best example, or best reason why therapists that deal with us need to have cultural competency. You need to know what is walking through your front door.
Right. Absolutely. And I know the IAFF, they're beta testing. They just did 2 beta tests on a clinician course and they even put them through a fire ops. And I thought that was a unique way to approach things. So they're trying to build a network as well. But I think we're about 4 years ahead of the IAFF when it comes to that. Just because we're a little bit more nimble and we, started grassroots. And
yeah, well, any big organization like that to course correct and start programs. I mean, you're talking about moving the needle 1/10 of a degree, and not. But yeah, no, I was looking at your website and all that stuff, the links that you sent me earlier today, and it seems to me like you guys have a really good thing going up there in BC, and
for sure,
and talking how we've talked today. You guys have done it right and taken the right steps to get to where you need to get. So
yeah, it's funny what motivates you, right? When people start falling over that waterfall, you really, it's our job to do something about it, man. That's this. I don't like sitting in the wings, and we are going to do everything. And we've got a conference coming up next week, 2-day conference. It's a BC First Responder Mental Health Conference. We've got 330 people, sold out last November, and it's per police, paramedics. We got customs there. I mean, it's going to be unreal. So, and we've got some speakers from the States as well as Canadians, and we got people internationally coming over from Australia. It's going to be awesome. So definitely there's a caring community out there, but man, we just got so much more work to do.
Yeah. And I don't know.
I guess we need to go to Canada now.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's one of those things where you got to look outside your backyard in your neighborhood to see what somebody else is doing, because it might work here.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys are getting some wicked guests on there, man. Like, you are definitely getting connected and getting ideas. And my good friends out of the Florida Firefighter Safety Collaborative, like, they're doing some amazing work down there. You got Sam Eaton and the gang that we're focusing on cancer largely. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Florida Firefighters Safety Collaborative, but they're tied directly in with Miami and the University there, and Sylvester Cancer Clinic. And they're doing a ton of mental health work as well. They're doing some clinician training. They've got a clinician network through Red Line Rescue. Like, there's some awesome little pockets of awesomeness everywhere that we get tied into. So you got some great stuff out of there. And just some out of California, there's my buddy Ben Vernon out of San Diego Fire, him and his Tina Consola. She's doing some amazing work on the West Coast with her helping first responders. And so it's just a matter of connecting all those, right? And having those like-minded people firing on all cylinders, because we're so siloed. And I think that's what I love about doing these podcasts, is that it's like seeing what else is out there, right? And connecting really like-minded people. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's what fires me up.
The bigger the network can be,
Yeah.
And, who knows, somebody might watch this who's in Colorado or, Michigan or somewhere and go, you know what? I'm getting on board with that. I'm going to start something here. And
hey, man, we're about to be international, man. He's going to tell his crew and they're going to watch it. And bam, that's going to be the start of it. Next thing you know, it's going across the ocean. I'm sure he met somebody in Hawaii the other day. Yeah. He's going to tell them.
That's how it begins, man. Yeah. So you're another podcast I was on with James Gearing from Behind the Shield there. I don't know if you're familiar with that guy, but he is me. No, but he's got some wicked connections, man. Like I think these podcast networks of firefighters are really getting internationally renowned for sure, because there's no ego. They've got an interest in meeting like-minded people, and there's guests from, like, you had Lori White on there from, she was awesome, and she's gonna be one of our speakers at our conference. Like,
oh, that's fantastic.
It's so cool, man, and she's got such a wicked story of resilience, right? And so the more the word gets out, and the more these connect with each other, and you listen. I love that you listen to Christian's podcast, because he listens to everyone else's podcast too, right? And you get ideas for guests. And it just keeps that conversation going. It's awesome, you guys. Like, I love that we're having these conversations.
Oh yeah. And being able to cross the lines too of, fire and police and EMS and the veteran community. And, cause we're all dealing with the same problems in a different way,
big time.
Police are a little bit different than fire, but it's kind of the same. And EMS, it's the same thing, and veterans are different but the same. And it's a community that really meshes well together, for lack of a better term.
It does, because they can relate to each other, right? Because trauma bonds, right? When trauma is trauma, stress is stress. Like, no matter how it comes at you, we're going to the same calls. I mean, I can't relate to someone in the military, but I got a ton of military friends, and it is, it's interesting. This is kind of a sidebar, but when we interviewed 30 firefighters for our resiliency program to find out what the needs were. And some of them were ex-military, but the two doctors had done a ton of work with guys that were in Afghanistan, Bosnia, like a ton of like Rwanda, nasty conflicts, right? With a lot of carnage and kids getting killed and shit like that. Well, when they interviewed the firefighters, it's like, it was a whole nother, just trying to make that connection between the military and the fires. Like, they go to a tour of duty, and then they come back and they see some horrible shit. We're doing a tour of duty every set. And it's 30 years of that. And what they've discovered was the body count from someone like us, that, like, if you started doing a body count, it's like they may have had a conflict where there's 20 people got killed. Now, we've seen 20 people in 4 months get killed. Like, it's not to sensationalize it, but in a 30-year career, they were blown away at the body count. And we don't even think anything of it, because you're so desensitized. Like, I just went to another cardiac. It's like, oh, fucking, well, she was 75. She lived a pretty good life. Like, don't think, but that's another body count. It's another rock in the backpack. I don't care who you are. You're putting that back there.
Yep.
And
then you're going to drive.
Surprising.
Yeah. And then you're going to drive by that house on your way home from the shift.
Exactly. Right. And so you're re-traumatized. You're never leaving the conflict.
Yeah.
So, but that relatability of police, paramedics, like we go to the same calls. We may have different ways of coping and different protective factors. I think fire's got an advantage, to be quite honest with you, because we've got this brother and sisterhood. We spend a ton of time at the kitchen table. Last night I was helping my crew cook dinner, right? So there's a lot of bonding going on, where I don't think our other first responder families have that. They're they're in a car by themselves, or running 2x2, and it's a different world, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're fortunate that way most of the time.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, my station, I've got 13 other people there. Because it's a
big family.
We got the battalion chief and me, and then the pumper and the truck and the ambulance, and there's always somebody around.
Yeah.
But you look out and see the cop drive by, and they're in their cruiser by themselves. And the only time they see anybody else is if they stop at Quick Trip, and it's like, oh, hey Bob, how you doing? And then back in their car, and they're driving around some more.
It's great, man.
I always tell them they're always welcome for whatever.
Absolutely.
They want to eat lunch or dinner with us, or you want some coffee at 2 a.m. Somebody's probably up.
Yeah.
Usually.
That's awesome. Good olive branch for sure.
Especially on the weekends, or if there's a Call of Duty or Madden tournament going on, then there's no telling what time we'll go to bed at that point.
Right on.
And they always want me to play because I'm the worst one at video games. Like, easy win. You're in.
Easy win. I love it. That's awesome. Fantastic.
It just depends on where I work, how many people we got.
Yeah, I know you're still afloat.
I'm still floating. I just got promoted not too long ago.
Right on.
I get bounced from station to station, but
you're a gypsy right now. I enjoyed that because you got to see everybody, but it's definitely nice having your own hall, your own station.
It is
for sure.
But it's been not. I haven't taken a detail in 8 years, I think.
Oh yeah.
Because I worked as a medic when I was a firefighter, and then as a driver, you don't take details.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a driver that long. But
yeah. Worked one shift as a driver.
I worked one pay period as a driver.
Oh wow.
It's the way it worked. I got hurt, and then I had two surgeries over the year, and I got promoted while I was off. And then I came back for 2 weeks as a driver and got promoted to captain. It's just, but it counts. It counts as I worked as a driver.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
But so it's been nice taking the details and meeting people I've never met before.
Yeah, that's right. You'd never do that normally. So it's good.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, and it's good, as far as developing whatever your leadership style is going to be, because you do have to deal with so many different personalities, and you get to see, and I don't know how your department is, but you can go to this station over here and they do, we'll say, hose deployment. They do it this way. And then you go to this station and they do it this way. And it's like, okay, well, just got to figure out which one's better for me,
Does the hose come off the rig?
Yeah.
That's all I care about.
That's all water at the end, we're winning. So
yeah.
We don't have any kinks. Perfect. Let's go.
Yeah.
When's the last time you were at a fire and there were no kinks in the hose? Oh, well.
Cool.
Steve, you got some more for us, or
Well, God, I know we're in the midst of God, man, I got a bunch of things going on right now. Like we're thinking about running a pilot with ketamine. I don't know what you guys' thoughts on psychedelic assisted therapy, but we're just jumping into that world. So
absolutely.
I've got a cool.
You did say ketamine, right?
Yeah,
ketamine,
I did hear that right.
Okay. Yeah. Have you not
That's
heard
great.
about?
I know. I'd like to go down the K-hole and see what that's about.
No,
but
come on, dude. Let's bring it back in. Bring it back in.
What?
So
There's nothing wrong with that.
So, Steve, if you could, Steve,
I haven't heard the psychedelics. Like, give me some mushrooms, I'll be happy.
Yeah,
we could talk about mushrooms too.
We can for sure. Psilocybin and ketamine, and I think this is a burgeoning field. It's been around for quite a while, right? But like going down the cable, but ultimately that's seriously what it is. But it's medically monitored. There's a psychology piece to this where you're in group counseling, individual counseling, and then there's weekend sessions of ketamine where they actually get you led down that ketamine assisted piece, and then you come out of it and there's more group work behind that. But it all works on that neuroplasticity of the brain, basically. So it's like these complex PTSD cases or people that are treatment resistant, and that ketamine piece under the right guidance actually opens your brain up to healing. And so a traditional, cognitive behavior therapy or talk therapy or whatever doesn't seem to get it for some of our people. And this is first responders, nurses, military, et cetera. And we've put people through this already in a pilot, and the results are unreal, man. Like life-changing, where there's I've been doing treatment for years and I have not been able to shift I'm still an asshole, right? And our whole job is turning assholes into assets. And this is another tool to do that. And, in all seriousness aside, I mean, the K-hole is a little quicker to go down and come back out of. The psilocybin hole is hours of a trip. But they're still seeing that people that have that really complex PTSD, they're seeing shifts in their behavior, like leaps and bounds to health. So we're moving them from surviving to thriving. And it's kind of crazy, man. Like, we're really excited about this. And
sign me up for that. I want to try that.
Yeah.
Have you guys investigated, or is that going to be part of the stellate ganglion block? Have you guys looked into that at all?
No, not at all. No.
So we had a guest on the show, Lauren Faringa, from A Hippie and a Veteran. She's actually based in Washington State. So you might want to look her up. She's in your backyard. She's a veteran and an activist for plant-based medicine and the SGB through our VA to get it for
Okay.
PTSD.
Brilliant.
And so basically what it is it's a shot that you get in your neck that basically, and it's safe. It's been around they've been doing it since the 50s, but it's like was originally for like back pain or something. And basically what it does is it calms those nerves down that keep you in the fight or flight response. And it allows you to do therapy, like traditional therapy, and actually work through stuff without getting so activated and that you can't even, like tell the story of the scene that bothered you or something. That's for those people,
Love it. Yeah, that's very cool, man. Like anything to downregulate somebody that's hijacked like that, I think. And that's a problem is people get broken and then they're unable to heal because of that. Like there's a disconnect. And I think anything we can do, whether it's plant-based or otherwise, make them feel safe. I mean, that's the true, because we have a great capacity to heal, right? If you're given the right support and love and all those things and feel safe, you can heal from pretty much anything. We're very resilient people. Like just to get this job, think of like, I don't know, it took me a long time. It took me 6 years of trying, and I hate the people that just like, oh, I just signed my name and I got the job. Like, motherfucker. But
we'll just not talk.
We won't skip that part.
But truly, you got to be resilient to be part of this job.
Yeah, it's kind of like whenever during med school we had to do mental health rotation. That's part of our clinicals. And one of the hospitals we went to, they did for lack of a better term, it's electroshock therapy. So it was real low dose, real control. Put them in a seizure. Like they'd come in the morning and be zombies. They'd hit them with the electricity, put on the temples, have their little seizure, go back and sleep it off. Then you saw them at lunch, back to normal. Different how you doing? What's going on? I mean, very engaging and all that. And it was like,
unreal.
Shit, because all you'd ever heard was the horror stories.
Yes.
From the asylums back in the day here in the
bite down on this and
they hit them with high dose of electricity, and now
crazy.
You're seeing the different response with the serotonin uptake and the dopamine and all of that. Yeah. So it's those things work if they're done in the right way.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, and anytime you get into the whole medicine piece of mental health, people get real skittish and stuff, and a lot of it is because a lot of the meds that they were using, they are permanent meds. If you start taking this, you can never get off of it. And
that scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, and I'm still up in the air about it, about how I really feel about, obviously there are some times whenever you have a chemical imbalance that you need the meds or whatever, but
it's not a crutch. I think our doctors are so quick to prescribe, right? And I think it's the same down there. It's pharma's got a big hand.
They got
on
their
that,
hooks
right?
and everything.
Absolutely. And it's so easy to just say, hey, you're having some anxiety, depression, here's some meds. And it's a quick fix, but the root cause pieces, that's where people should do the heavy lifting and need the right resources. And they got to want to get better. You can't just rely on that. And medication definitely has its place. And, we could definitely go down that rabbit hole, but I think it's a place to get you to a place where you can start healing. Whether it's like calming your nervous system, like you said, with a shot in the neck, that's great. As long as it launches you to dealing with your shit.
Yeah. Well, you got to do the work. Like I put out a video the other day of, awareness is great. That's great. You see all of these charities and all this stuff of awareness. That's fantastic that everybody's aware, but if everybody's aware, then why isn't crap changing? Somebody's got to do something. So don't wait on other people to come save you. Like if you're in a house fire, you're going to get out, or
drive the bus.
You're going to pull up. Like we're going to be on the rig one night and we're going to pull up in front of this house and it's going like crazy. And we're going to look at each other and go, man, somebody ought to put that out. Guess what? It's your job to put it out. Just like it's your job to do what you need to do to be mentally healthy.
I love it. But you are aware that there's a fire.
Exactly. Yeah. We're going to make everybody aware that house
there's a fire. And that's exactly the mental health thing, man. We are aware to shit, but it's like someone's got to do something about this.
Yeah.
And it's you. And that's a whole personal ownership piece. But there's there's ownership for an employer. You said it. That's us as coworkers, as peers, as friends. Like there's shared responsibility. But if you don't have that individual responsibility, I can't do it for you. And as a peer supporter, I support quite a few people through their little challenges, and I've been supported myself. But the biggest thing is I might have to work the pedals a few times and steer or get you back on track. But you're driving the freaking bus, man. Like if you're not driving, I can't help you.
Yeah.
Because I got burnt out trying to do that for everybody else. Like screw that.
Yeah. I'm there to support. I'm not there to do.
Exactly.
You have to, I think that's a common misconception that whenever people think about therapy or whatever, going to see a counselor, it's like, well, I'm going to sit on the couch and they're going to fix me. Yeah. No, they're going to give you a toolbox, and it's up to you to open the toolbox, get out the tools, and fix the problem.
Absolutely. And if you look at it as I like using this analogy. It's like mental health can be like climbing Everest, right? But having a mental health Sherpa to help you carry some stuff, whether it's friends, coworkers, or therapists, you got to have a mental health therapist. You got to have a mental health Sherpa. And maybe it's not just a therapist, but you got to have someone helping you in that journey. And because it's a big mountain to climb sometimes. It's scary, especially when you've already over the waterfall, right? So throwing your life
you got to have those goals. Just like in Everest, you have different camps you make.
Yeah, base camp. Yeah, it's a great analogy.
Each time. So you start, all right, we're going to climb up to our base camp 1. So you're starting at the ground floor. That's I'm fucked up. I need help. Yeah. Then your therapy is your base camp. And then you just keep going. All of a sudden, you're at the top of Everest. And
you've summited, right?
Yeah, you're looking down. You're like, oh.
We're gonna make that a shirt.
Yeah, I love it.
That's a t-shirt right there.
What's that?
Darn right.
The mental health climbing the mountain shirt. Come on, man. I can't do all of the heavy lifting.
I didn't know which part you were talking about.
No, but I think, and that's for our world. We use acronyms. We love analogies, right? It's like putting wet stuff on the red stuff, and we've got so many of those that we can definitely. And just using, took the fireground survival recently, and one of my buddies, he's one of the instructors, and they use breathe, orient, act, BOA, for when your situational awareness is lost and you're stuck in a fire, and just taking that moment and applying that to your own mental health is like, shit has hit the fan. I'm going to breathe, I'm going to think about what the problem is, and then I'm going to act. And I love these quick little acronyms that kind of translate from the fireground over, and having that 360, man, we're constantly scanning. Why not do a 360 inside and say, hey, what's going on? Why is my blood pressure up and my heartbeat's racing? I'm clenching my fist. Like, what's going on? Or am I snapping at my kids? Like, having those internal 360s. Guys can relate to that, right? I get the fireground, man, but what about internalizing that for ourselves and our own? And another buddy of mine said, what I loved is like, don't be afraid of the checkup for the neck up. Yep. And I thought, that's freaking love that. Like, why not? We always worry about our physical bodies. What about the freaking, you go to the dentist, why don't you go get your head checked? So,
exactly.
I love it.
It's all about proactive and preventative.
Yeah,
exactly. Let's do those things.
Right on.
Oh, well, Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts for us besides check up from the neck up?
Check up from the neck up. I think just circling back to that whole self-care piece, man, we are so entrenched in taking care of everybody else, families, workers, the society, communities, that we got to take care of ourselves. So not being afraid to take a knee, knowing that self-care is not selfish, and really like finding things that fill your cup up, I think, and because you can't give from an empty bucket, right? So like, I honestly think, getting hope and meaning and back in your life is really critical if you've lost it, and taking really good care of yourself. I'd leave you with that. I challenge everybody to do that.
Cool. Chris?
My bud.
I'm gonna stick with the check up from the neck up. I like that. I think that was a perfect way to end it.
Yep.
I mean, it encompasses everything.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
You're not wrong.
Just don't be afraid to take care of your crews. Even, doesn't matter what rank you are. Mental health has no rank.
Absolutely.
And you got to check on each other.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are struggling, reach out. There are resources out there. If you know somebody that's struggling, reach out to them. Let them know you care. Let them know what the resources are. And thanks to Steve for sharing with us today. Appreciate it, man. And we will see you next time.